Who owns Apple? Who owns Microsoft? Who owns Coca-Cola? And who owns their biggest rival, PepsiCo? We are taught that capitalism is about competition. Ford versus Chevy, Google versus Apple, Coke versus Pepsi. But what if I told you that competition is largely an illusion? Peel back the logos, and the same name appears at the top of shareholder lists, again and again. It's a company that doesn't make cars, or phones, or soda. No physical products at all. They are called BlackRock. They don't just own your favorite brands. They own the banks where you keep your money. They own the media companies that write the news you read every day. And, some argue, they own the officials meant to regulate them. This is how one company quietly bought the world, and why you barely noticed. To understand BlackRock, you first have to wrap your head around the number $10 trillion. It is a number so large it creates a gravitational field. $10 trillion is more than the GDP of Germany. It is more than the GDP of Japan. In fact, if BlackRock were a country, it would be the third largest economy on Earth, trailing only the United States and China. But how did they get this big? They didn't do it by being smarter stock pickers. They didn't do it by gambling on the next Bitcoin. They did it by being boring. In the old days, you hired a guy to pick stocks. He charged high fees and usually lost money. Then BlackRock popularized something else, the index fund. Instead of trying to find the needle in the haystack, they just bought the whole haystack. Through their subsidiary, iShares, BlackRock allows millions of people to invest in the S&P 500 or the total stock market. When you put $100 into your 401k, you aren't choosing BlackRock, but BlackRock is choosing you. Because they manage everyone's retirement accounts, they have become the top shareholder in almost every major publicly traded company in America. They own the airlines and the oil companies. They own the hospitals and the pharmaceutical companies. This is what economists call common ownership, and it gives BlackRock a terrifying amount of power. They don't need to compete, they just need the entire economy to go up. But money is only half the story. The real source of their power isn't cash. It's a machine. Deep inside BlackRock's operations lies a piece of technology that might be the most powerful computer program ever written. It is called Aladdin. Aladdin stands for Asset, Liability, Debt, and Derivative Investment Network. It sounds technical, but think of it as the central nervous system of the global economy. Aladdin doesn't just manage BlackRock's $10 trillion. It acts as the risk management system for other massive asset managers. Vanguard uses it. State Street uses it. The top insurers in Europe use it. Estimates suggest that Aladdin monitors the risk for over $21 trillion in assets. That is a single software platform, watching over a significant chunk of all the wealth on planet Earth. It sees every trade, every loan, every shift in the market, often before anyone else does. This data advantage is so supreme that when the world catches on fire, governments don't call the Ghostbusters. They call Larry Fink. In 2008, when Wall Street collapsed, the system shook. The US government couldn't tell which banks were toxic or safe. They didn't have the data. BlackRock did. The Federal Reserve hired BlackRock to analyze Bear Stearns and AIG's toxic assets. Fast forward to 2020. The pandemic crashes the market. Who does the Federal Reserve call to rescue corporate bonds? BlackRock. Let that sink in. The world's largest private investor helped run a government bailout. Player and referee, Aladdin makes BlackRock indispensable, too big to ignore. So, they own the stocks. They control the data. But how does this affect you, sitting in your living room? you've probably heard the rumors. BlackRock is buying every single family home in America to turn us all into permanent renters. Here is the nuance. BlackRock is often confused with Blackstone, a private equity firm that buys tens of thousands of homes. BlackRock doesn't directly buy houses on that scale, but they don't have to. BlackRock is a major shareholder in the companies buying homes. They invest in the builders. They buy the mortgage-backed securities that fund the market. They profit from the housing crisis without being your landlord. They are the capital behind the consolidation of the American dream. But their most controversial tool isn't housing. It's 3 letters: ESG, environmental, social, and governance. Every year, Larry Fink writes a letter to the CEOs of the companies BlackRock owns. In 2020, he dropped a bombshell. He basically said, if you don't have a plan for climate change, and if you don't meet our social standards, we will vote against you. Because BlackRock owns 5% to 8% of almost every company, their vote can fire a CEO. They forced ExxonMobil to replace board members with climate-friendly directors. They pressured companies to adopt diversity quotas. To some, this is responsible capitalism, saving the planet because governments won't. To others, it is the ultimate abuse of power. An unelected king of Wall Street, forcing his ideology on the entire global economy, using your retirement money to do it. The backlash has been fierce. Larry Fink recently stopped using the term ESG because it became so toxic, but make no mistake, the strategy hasn't changed. The pressure is still there. The control is still absolute. We used to worry about monopolies like Standard Oil or Bell Telephone, companies that controlled a single industry. BlackRock is something new. It is a monopoly on everything. It is a monopoly on trust, on data, on the direction of the future. They manage the money for your pension. They assess the risk for your bank. They advise the Treasury Department on how to save the economy. And they hold the voting power to change the behavior of the companies you buy from every day. Larry Fink often says his goal is to help people retire with dignity, and perhaps that is true. But in the process, he has built a machine that has quietly conquered the world. The question isn't whether BlackRock is good or evil. The question is, should any one company have this much power? And if they do, is it already too late to stop them?